going to give you the next piece of this. So here is Cavendish's 2022 as-built grand list. Okay? And how to reconcile that. And this is based off of 411s. And I'm going to give you another thing. So, when you look at your grand list, so here's your grand list. And you've got all these entities. Right? So my data that I'm using, Town of Cavendish, with their permission, I just gave you a handout of 2022's grand list with Town of Cavendish. 411 reports, right? Yeah. I gave you all 411s. And if you look here, I've got a binder that sits in my town office that represents this. I just put it in a binder, and the only thing that's in here are 411s for 2022. Okay? That little guy is going to match up with tax books that the treasurer runs. Because once we start and make an as-built grand list, and we send tax bills out, every time we change a parcel, download a homestead debt, do an error and omission, it prompts the treasurer to print a revised tax book. Okay? So these two books should stay in sync once we start printing tax bills. So I want to take you through 2022 taxes right here. And when we open up page 1, look in the upper left corner. It's a 411 from July 20th of 2022. So last summer, right?
I don't know, someone crossed out the 9.
I did, because I printed them all on September, so I had to cross them out. Okay? So this is our starting point. So if we go into Cavendish 2022,
yeah, I'll figure it out.
Do you think you can?
Better I'll ask the teacher.
back in July, if I went to the reports menu and ran this 411, I would get this 411. I tell people to print it out and put it in a binder. That's your starting point, because you just created the as-built grand list, and now in July, we're getting started on our 2022 data, the next year, right? Good. So, the other thing I recommend you do is create a copy of your grand list. These are benchmarks that you can use, so if you lose this piece of paper, you can reproduce it. And I'll show you how. So when I go to the reports menu and do my 411, I've got this little checkbox over here that says print from. And it gives me a list. I'll try to make it as big as I can so that everyone can see it. Right there. Okay? I got a March, I got an August 30th, I got a 10/25, I got a November, and you don't see a 411 from, January 19th or a freeze file, because I'm done working on my grand list. I didn't make one. I just left it. My current data is the most recent. Okay? So, this is what my data looked like in July. When I go advance next, right here, what happens on page 2?
errors and omissions.
Errors and omissions.
And I think this is wonderful, because I always try to keep a list and I lose it.
That's right. So I'm putting it in my 411. So in July, I printed my tax bills, right? Based on this 411. But shortly thereafter, I found a mistake. And I have to fix that mistake.
Yeah, we don't make mistakes, no, we just.
Well, they're not mistakes as much as happy little instances.
That's right,
okay?
that's right.
So the law says, if we find a mistake after we lodge our grand list with the town clerk, we gotta fill out a form and submit it to the select board to let them know, hey, we made this little happy instance and we need to correct it. Okay? So here's the documentation that tells everybody this is what happened, and when you go to the next 411, Cavendish, August 30th, 411. It's changed a little bit. Found it?
Yep.
And in the upper right, upper right, you see I put a little footnote, a number 1 with a circle around it, to identify that my unlanded mobile home changed. Huh. Wow, look at my error and omission form.
Yes,
It's an
I
unlanded
know,
mobile
I
home
love
that I
that.
changed, right?
That's what we were just right there.
So I documented,
Yeah.
here's my 411 that I started with.
Then you give it to Slipman.
I had to fix an unlanded mobile home, and now here's my new 411.
There's no.
If my listers did their work well, if I come in here and I look, span number 10043. Oh, it's an inactive parcel. I inactivated it. Somebody inactivated it. Why? Oh, 2023, see notes. I wonder what that says.
Goodness, I don't know.
Go to my notes. Oh, this is getting good. 2023, July 30th, error and omission. Mobile home was not there on April 1st. SB, select board approved. Well, that all ties my original 411 that I sent tax bills out on. I had to fix something, and then I did my new 411 and had to print, and this guy got a revised tax bill, didn't he? Because originally he got taxed for that mobile home. Then by the end of July, we figured it out, and we said, oh, you shouldn't have received that, that's our mistake. Okay? So, let me pause there, and let me give you, because there's so few of us here, let's go here. All right, I'm going to give you the tax book. I'm going to jump the curve. Right? I think you guys can take it. Here's our tax book. Because I want to show you exactly what's going on with the tax book.
See, this is what she does.
Okay? If we look at the tax book, it says original, 7/20/2022. That matches our 411, so we know where we got these values from. Then when we turn the page, right? Here's a list. It's called a treasurer's report. And it shows everybody that changed, had their taxes changed before one point and another. And this is a cumulative report, and I'll get back to that in a second. But if you look on it, halfway down on the first page, somebody wrote in error and omission. August whatever. It's our unlanded mobile home. You see it? So now our tax book changed a little bit because we took that guy's, we told him, oh shoot, you shouldn't have been taxed for that. And if you look at this, it says the person's name. She was originally billed $500–600 in the original bill column, and then it says revised bill 0. Why is it 0? Because it's an error and omission. Shouldn't have been billed originally for it, right?
Yep.
So when you flip through 2 pages of that, because in this example, we didn't do a tax book every week that we made changes. They did one when we originally billed, and they did one on the 19th of January 2023, which is when we do what as listers? Submit a final grand list, right? So this is the grand list, and these are the taxes that are going to be raised. So this is
So the
showing.
treasurer can run this report?
Can you
Yes,
show us where that is, Chris?
I certainly can.
Please.
So, here's what's happened. If I go to tax book, I can print a tax book from the as-billed freeze file, aka 720. That's the day we printed tax bills. Okay? And then this is what it looked like. Right here. And it matches it matches what's in your handout.
Wow.
Okay.
Check on that.
Oh, I didn't hit summary only. Sorry. Okay? That's what this matches.
Yeah.
Okay? Then in December, or January 1st, they ran their current one. And it had a different number on it because of all those errors and omissions, homestead declarations that we downloaded from July 1st to December 31st, the end of the grand list season. So if I come out here, this guy right here, State Treasurer's Report. Show me all the taxes that have changed, okay, between the day we printed bills and the end of the year.
Now, where's that?
Preview.
Why is it called state?
On the reports.
Okay.
So here's that list in that tax book handout I just gave you. This is the 2-page list.
Yep.
Okay? Everybody on here is going to be an error and omission, a homestead debt, or a current use change, right? And if you look at my handout, where'd it go? I just went down the side to illustrate to you guys,
Yeah.
and I used my fancy handwriting,
Yeah.
and I wrote, first one, homestead declaration, declared on 7/20, okay? And if you look down through the list, you see the one E&O, that's why that one changed. And then you see, oh,
Current use.
fourth from the bottom, current use changed. So we had to edit their current use a little bit.
Yeah.
No big deal. But that's why they got a revised tax bill. And if I look in my 411 booklet over here, somewhere in here, let me turn the page. Let me look in my October 411s. Is that when the current use exemption change happened? Let's see. Yep. Right there. Here's my 411 that I did on October 25th. Comparing it to the August 30th one. The only thing that changed was the current use exemption. So me, as a savvy lister, made a little footnote here. Current use changed, and wrote down what parcel it was. Okay? What this ends up being for me, I had a lister call me up all freaked out. She did this exact thing, okay? She had a binder, just like this for every grand list season, that did a 411 for the start of 1 week. She made changes, documented it, made a new 411. This is how we got from point A to B to C. So she called me up all freaked out. Chris, the auditors are here and they want to see the changes that I made in my 2022 as-built grand list. Okay, give them to them. Oh, I don't know, I just know there was homestead declarations and current use changes and stuff like that, but I don't know exactly. I'm like, wait a second. Don't you do this binder that walks you through how you got from point A to B? That's a tax bill. Okay? How you got from point A to B on your 411? Yeah, I did. Hand them the binder. Because here's what I started with. Here's my error and omission list of what I changed that week. And here's my new 411, the next page. Right? Right here. She's like, well, that's easy. And I said, it is. Because when you think about this, and I always use this example, your parents used to tell you, if you get your toys out, pick them up after you're done playing with them. Reconcile your 411 at the end of every day, or when you're making changes, right? Makes it a lot easier. Or, don't clean up your toys and wait and do it on Saturday. And spend your whole Saturday, right? Which way do you want to do it? I just reconciled the town of Cavendish's grand list in this format in less than 2 days for the 2022, the 23, and getting ready for the 24. I'm going to show you those binders. Not because of who I am, but I know what I'm looking for. And with these little restore points, the create copy of the grand list, I can say, oh, this is where you were in July, and here's where you were in August. Here's where you were in August, and this is where you were in October. And I found the differences and I added the notes. But if you do it as listers, you know what you're working on. It doesn't take you any time whatsoever to make these notes, and you're done. The treasurer is sitting over here doing the same thing with the tax book. You make a change to that grand list after we printed tax bills, they have to print a revised tax bill. That revised tax bill has to, I'm going to show you here, has to get transferred to tax administration. So when I look through here, here's a whole list of when we printed the bills and every adjustment that happened after that. These adjustments are going to match your 411 booklet. Because when you change 5 parcels, well, we got one treasurer, Cheryl, has to transfer those new values over to tax receivable, so when the taxpayer comes in to pay their bill, she knows how much she's supposed to take in. So that software looks like this. Tax admin. Okay? And this is where she receives everybody's taxes. Okay? So believe it or not, now we've gone into another realm. I said 22 taxes, right? See if I get this right. Preview. So this report says the treasurer should be collecting this much money from what we send out on tax bills. Right?
Yep.
Where did we send the tax bills from? Which program? The grand list.
Yep.
So, that means this report right here had better match, where did I just put it? Had better match these tax book reports. Come here. Boy, this paper is slippery, isn't it?
Slippery as stick. Yeah, beautiful paper.
Right here. This is the tax book report out of the grand list. And this total tax bill has got to go over and match the treasurer's tax administration program. We got to keep those in sync. So we're keeping the 411, the tax book, and the treasurer's tax administration program all tied together. All three pieces of the puzzle have to equal, right? But you're doing very different jobs. The listers are looking at assessment in parcels. The treasurer's looking at tax dollars. When you change an assessment on a parcel, it changes the tax dollar. You make a change over there, the treasurer has to do something over here to make sure they stay in sync. Okay? Make sense?
Yes.
All right,
I
good.
hate to admit it.
Okay, now, let me see.
Are
What other book can I
is
get?
this all on your website, Chris? with-
I'm gonna upload this stuff.
Well,
So,
no, I mean the procedure that you're talking about. You have a lot of helpful things on the NEMRC
I do.
site.
I do have out there on the website. Let me go out here. I think I have my website up. Out here at the NEMRC website,
Yeah.
in our video library, I believe I have a Reconciling Taxes. I have some help documents as well. If you go to tax administration, I believe there's steps for reconciling taxes, so it's dialed in there. I've just never done anything this complete where I go from a 22 as-built grand list here with what a 411 booklet would look like in your town office to the tax book, which should be in the treasurer's office, showing the same changes in how we get from point A to B, so that when we get to this final deal, right here, the 119 tax book, okay? That's the last page. That tax book ties you together with the Agency of Ed's cash flow statement. Listers 411, to treasurer's tax book, to AOE's cash flow statement. All three should tie out to the T. And like I said, this isn't, at the beginning of the first session, this isn't tricky math. This is Jethro math. A plus B equals C. 1 and 1 equals 2. And if they don't equal, if your 411 says one number and the treasurer doesn't have a revised bill or something is off, we don't have the same story, and we need to stop and figure out who's made a change to the system and why are we off. Okay? So, I will go from there to this one. I didn't print this one out because
One of the nice things, way back before you got us all linked, I can remember sitting there with 411s, with Shirley at one table with us and another, and a mistake.
Yep.
And you had to try to find it. But
It's
not
not-
as easy as it is now.
Oh, it's a lot easier now. And when I first started, I would be brought into a town, and I would look at last year's grand list and compare it to this year's grand list. Okay? A whole year's worth And I'd sit down and with listers and say, what happened here? Did you send them a grievance notice? You got a new parcel. What did it subdivide from? You know, oh, that's not right. It didn't subdivide from anything. I'm like, well, then where did it come from? You can't just have a parcel just appear. So here's a 411 booklet I did for 2023. And in this booklet, I went all the way back from July of 2022, okay? And so this would have been our working grand list back then, okay? All the way through to September, right there. My last 411 is September 6th from this week. So I've reconciled. These are all the 411s that bring you from point A to point B in a grand list calendar. And I'm not done yet, right? Because when do we stop in the grand list?
December 31st.
Right. So I'm only up to September. So I got 3-4 more months. Yeah, 3 more months.
There's that math you
Woo!
did earlier.
That almost hurt. Take a look at that. Just,
Well, if you count September, you got 4.
yeah. But I'm going to end. Yeah, but I'm already in September. So, but I'm going to end, so I'm going to keep track of more 411s till I get there. And this is how I do it. Let me see, 2023, yeah. So this is how I do it, is as I've been telling listers, this has been a feature for about 4 or 5 years now. I don't find very many clicking on that button and creating a copy. And it's as simple as this. I've got to a point in time. What did we do in August for the state of Vermont? We sent a copy of our 411 to the state of Vermont. I'm going to click on Create Copy of the Grand List, 2023, 08-15. Sent 411 to the state. This is what I sent. I'm going to print it out and put it in my booklet. Then if anybody questions me and says, boy, what was your August 15th submission? I'm not going to go and run for the booklet. I'm just going to sit at my computer and bring it back up, right? But I do have the booklet just in case I need that tangible piece, like an auditor's asking or something. I can just say, here it is, okay? So use this. So then I can go to the reports menu, comparison report, right? I get all these choices of grand list. Do I want to compare the town of Cavendish 2023 back to any of these entities? And if I scroll down, okay, I can compare it to last year's grand list. Show me all the changes I made from here to there, or vice versa, from 2022 to where I am today, okay? Yes?
Proposing making a copy, like, even in Cavendish, they didn't do on August 15th, 2023.
Yep,
To compare against. So
I
you're
can.
saying- But then they didn't, or it doesn't matter, but I'm saying, you're saying August and then do one in December.
Yeah, anytime you're doing
3
important
copies,
things,
basically.
so because what I can do is compare my current grand list back to July 18th, after I made my new entity. Show me all the changes from where I am today back to that day, okay? But like I was just saying,
Just try to do like as few copies, but the most meaningful copies.
yes,
You don't want to make needless copies of the grand list.
right.
Too many to.
But what we do like during grievance hearings, so I'm going into grievance hearings in the town that we reappraise. When we do that, sometimes NEMRC will have 10 hearing officers making changes. So what we do is we create a copy of the grand list before the grievance hearing. And then at the end of day 1, we compare our 411 from the end of day 1 back to before we started. And all the assessors look at it and say, yep, those are the changes that we made, because there's so many of us doing them. We want to make sure that we can reconcile that, okay? Then at the end of day one, we create another copy and say, before start of day two. That way we know where we're starting and how to compare back to day one. Now, once we get through all the hearings, if we've done them for a week, we might just keep the first one and the last one, because everything else is documented, okay? So that's how we handle this, and it's pretty straightforward.
I can tell you, it is kind of, it's a good thing that that process is
It
set
makes it
up,
a lot
'cause it's
easier.
chaos sometimes.
So I'm going to send around, here's my treasurer's tax book that goes along with that 411. And the treasurer in this example didn't print out every single one, okay? But you can see the tax book and how it followed along with the changes to the taxes, or to the grand list, to the value, okay? This is something I hang my hat on all of the time. I just found in a town, they called me yesterday. My VT Pi numbers don't match NEMRC. Okay. So I look in VT Pi with them. The last time they uploaded in VT Pi was July 31st. I'm like, well, you uploaded data in on July 31st, and it's September 6th. This parcel that you're looking at, did you make a change to it after July 31st? I don't think so. Well, let's go look. So I came into their comparison reports. They had a comparison report that went back to July 25th. So I said, compare the current data back to July 25th. Guess who was on the report? That one parcel. I said, so your problem is you just need to re-upload your newer data. You never uploaded that change to VT Pi. That's all it was. But having that comparison, it was a 1-minute phone call. We didn't have to restore data. We didn't have to do any of that. So that's the importance of being able to reconcile this stuff and keeping track of it. And I know, in Todd, when he said he was a city assessor in Burlington,
South Burlington.
South Burlington,
You're
sorry.
right.
He's like, that's a grueling task. There's a lot going on. You're right. There certainly is. But if you use the computer in your checks and balances and your reports to your advantage, you know, maybe you don't document every single thing. You document that there was a change, okay? And I've done it a couple different ways in those booklets. Sometimes you see where I just made a footnote on the 411 itself. Other times you see where I put the errors and omission form in to show you what I changed. It doesn't matter, I just wanted to show either way you do it, however you want to run the book, but just try to keep it simple. Don't try to stick everything under the sun in that book. It's just meant to be the 411, what you changed, and the next 411. What you changed, and the next 411. Over and over and over.
Your copies, like when you make the copies, back in the day before they had copies, I would make, you know how you do you lodge your grand list, have your grievance hearings, you lodge your grand list again, give it to the clerks, print bills. I would roll over and make a new entity at the as lodged, and then a new one at the as billed, to do exactly what this is doing now in the same program, to compare back to what was it back then. Now they have this, and you just go to report, you click on it, and compare it.
Yeah.
But it's this making copies things.
Yeah.
My feeble mind, it's a godsend. You know, and then you can do your comparison reports. You can do your comparison reports from when you put your first as-built grand list to at the end of the year. You do your comparison reports, you see every change that's made. And some of those may be your E&Os. Others may be homesteads, name changes. Everything will be right there. And then you look at it and say, is this right? Because he used to go through this with me, just like he was saying. What happened to this? What happened to that? And I had those comparison reports. I compared them. Here's what happened. Here's one here. And then once you go through and he gets his part done, or he's happy, he'll do the tax bills.
So when I do this comparison report, compare this year back to last year, right? For me, this is where the rubber meets the road. Show parcels I've added or removed or inactivated. I'm going to sort it by category so it all groups together. This town tracks personal property. These first three parcels, comparing my 23 back to 22, is telling me there's no category. That's the first red flag that it's personal property. Personal property is businesses declaring how much equipment they have, computers, desks, that kind of thing. It says here, in 23, it's inactive, whereas in 22, it was active. Meaning, in 23, it's not going to get a tax bill. If I'm not going to get a tax bill, I want to know why. And I can probably look up those parcels, and it says, no inventory declared for 23, or no equipment. But these guys, once I get down into the real properties, right here, very first one. This is a brand new parcel because it's blank over here, so it has nothing to compare against in 2022. It didn't exist. But they also told me it's contiguous with this property. So, what does that mean in Lister world? If you think in your head, why would a parcel not have existed last year, but it exists this year,
It's a breakup.
and it's contiguous?
Or they bought.
They bought a sliver of land or a piece of land that's contiguous with their existing property. So, this is showing me somebody subdivided and sold the 275 Field Road LLC, a piece of property that touched their existing piece of property. So it's getting taxed all under this property, not on its own, which is perfectly fine. This report tells me a little bit of a story. This next one, David Courier, is active now and was inactive last year. Well, I'll bet you if I look up that parcel, David Courier bought a piece of property that was originally contiguous with somebody else, and now he bought it on his own again. So it broke it back out of that other parcel. Like I said before,
Yeah.
Peter Doobie, no comparison to last year. This is a new subdivision. So this is what I hand the listers and I say, is that correct? Are these all subdivisions where there's nothing over here? And where did they come from? Right? And if I go and look, like if I look up this one, 11,586. I'm going to cancel out of here. I said 11,586, right?
Yeah.
Okay? If I go to the transfers tab, oh, look at that. Transfer type, ask for split. Richard Gilchrist originally owned this. I can find it in book 92, page 827, and it was a sale on March 2023. That's where this parcel came from. Perfect. So Gilchrist had a bigger piece of a brownie, cut it in half, and sold some of it to Peter Doobie. That's where the new parcel came from. 411 changed, didn't it? Our 411 increased by a parcel in the miscellaneous category for $53,400. So if you were doing your 411 in March, you would have identified this change. I hear you. That's how you reconcile. And to bring you full circle, working grand list. Because We've made our as-built entities this year, right? So we started with a new working grant list. So again, working grant list on 7/18. All the homestead decks have been cleared out, all the current use. Okay? This is what we're starting with. Then the next page, we'll see how soon I did that grand list. Let me take a look. I would have created a restore point. Oh, look at this. I made a couple changes. Because I'm working. I'm a lister. I gotta get stuff done. Okay? I made these changes too. I'm a lister. It's what I do. Here's my new 411 at the end of the day. To show me where I am.
That's fine.
Yes. Yeah, Sandra does this religiously. Yep.
The only thing Sandra does
Okay.
religiously is pray every morning when she goes to work.
It's a good start.
Yeah, right.
Good start. One foot in front of the other. But that's the gist of it, right? So all of you as listers should have this booklet, and if you don't have a booklet started, start one. Okay? That's it.